Gandhi reached Bombay on August 29th to catch the boat in time. SS Rajputana was ready to sail. Accompanying Gandhi were two fellow delegates, Sarojini Naidu and Madan Mohan Malaviya. At noon on August 29th, the Rajputana steamed out. Jawaharlal Nehru watched the ship that carried the sole representative of 1/5 of the human race to the Arabian Sea and the far west. Quaint traveler carried the scantiest of luggage and scrupulously observed his daily routine on board the ship. On the misty, cold morning of September 11th, SS Rajputana anchored at Marseille. When the spiritual ambassador of India alighted on the soil of war-weary Europe, he was hailed with shouts of "Vive la Gandhi!" At Folkestone on September 12th, Britons gathered to greet the guest of the nation. Gandhi landed on British soil with thoughts of the hard task ahead. "I am here to vindicate the honor of India and to uphold truth as I see it, for I believe it is the keystone of life." At the Federal Structure Committee of the Round Table Conference held at St. James's Palace, the voice of resurgent India spoke through Gandhi. The goal of absolute independence remains intact. Gandhi stressed the need of adult suffrage and racial equality and advocated an honorable partnership between India and Britain. "The nation that does not control its defense forces and external policy," asserted Gandhi, "is hardly a responsible nation." He struck a note of warning. A nation of 350 million people needs simply a will of its own to say no, and that nation is today learning to say no. In this center of the British textile industry, the Mayor of Darwin welcomed the most uncompromising advocate of the boycott of foreign cloth. He pointedly asked the operatives, "Do you want Lancashire's prosperity to be built upon the ruin of the Indian artisan?" Their spontaneous reaction was, "We know each other now." The Round Table Conference was completely abortive. Every divisive tendency in India was encouraged. The conference concluded on December 1st.
Whatever the result of the mission that brought me to London, I know that I shall carry with me the pleasantest memories of my stay in the midst of the poor people of East London.
On December 5th, 1931, Gandhi left Britain without any disappointment. Gandhi boarded the Channel boat to the French coast on the way home, leaving behind seeds of goodwill and mutual understanding. At a meeting in Geneva, he pointed out,
"My speeches at the Round Table Conference have all officially reported. Meanwhile, I must ask you to believe me when I say that I have never made a statement of this description, that the masses of India, if it became necessary, would resort to violence. All that as you like. It is complete independence that we want."
On December 14th, Gandhi boarded SS Pilsner at Brindisi en route to India. On December 28th, 2 days after the arrest of Jawaharlal Nehru, Gandhi reached the shores of India. Bombay staged a magnificent welcome to Gandhi. Thousands turned out en masse to greet him. Gandhi encamped on the terrace of Mani Bhavan and acquainted himself with the situation. Gandhi gave detailed account of his work in Britain to the members of the Congress Working Committee. He discussed the grim situation in the country with his colleagues and sought an interview with Lord Willingdon to find a way out. On receiving a stiff reply from the Viceroy, Gandhi had no choice left but to resort to civil disobedience. He prepared to go to jail. The government instantly struck back, and when the whole nation was asleep, Gandhi was put under arrest at 3 a.m. on Monday, January 4th, his weekly day of silence in the tent on the terrace of Mani Bhavan. On August 17, 1932, the British Premier's Communal Award confirmed Gandhi's fear of a perpetual bar sinister which separated the untouchables from the Hindu fold. He informed Ramsay MacDonald that he would fast unto death from the noon of September 20th if the decision was not abandoned. In a yard of the gaunt grey prison at Yeravada, Gandhi commenced his vow of extreme self-sacrifice. On the 5th day of the fast, the caste Hindus and the depressed class leaders, in consultation with Gandhi, signed the pact accepting joint electorates. The Yeravada Pact nullified the British Premier's decision. Gandhi broke his fast of 6 days and 5 hours. Naming the untouchables as Harijans, God's own people, Gandhi began conducting the weekly Harijan from the prison, which brought about a renaissance of faith and hope for millions. On July 31st, Gandhi disbanded the 18-year-old Sabarmati Ashram as a gesture of sympathy with those who had lost property in the freedom struggle. He made it over to the Harijan cause and shifted his headquarters to Wardha, the geographical center of India. Gandhi tramped to Segaon, later called Sevagram. Sevagram Ashram was but an experiment in truth and non-violence. Gandhi lived here with Kasturbai as a villager of his dream. In September 1938 came the moral catastrophe of Munich. Compelled to heed the rumbling of the coming storm, Gandhi observed, "The peace Europe gained at Munich is a triumph of violence. It is also its defeat. The science of non-violence can alone lead to pure democracy." Anticipating the devastating consequences of war, Gandhi wrote to Herr Hitler, the one person who could prevent a war that would reduce humanity to a savage state. "Must you pay this price for an object, however worthy it may appear to you? Will you listen to the appeal of one who has deliberately shunned the method of war?" he asked. For a while, to pass beyond the darkness that enveloped the destiny of the world, Gandhi and Kasturbai visited Shanti Niketan at poet Tagore's invitation in February 1940. Poet welcomed Gandhi as one of their own and as one belonging to all humanity. The nearness of war became a challenge to Gandhi and a test of faith. He resumed the weeklies to disseminate his view that all war is immoral. Just then, Sir Stafford Cripps came to India with the proposals of the British War Cabinet on self-government for discussion with representative Indians. On March 27, Gandhi arrived in New Delhi as Cripps was anxious to meet him. Strongly disapproving the indefinite and innumerable partitions involved in the proposals, Gandhi asked, "Why did you come if this is what you have to offer?" The Quit India campaign began to take shape in Gandhi's mind. Accepting Gandhi's view that India's bondage enfeebled her for her own defense, the Congress Working Committee proclaimed to the country that British rule in India must end. Only the glow of freedom would enable the people's united will to resist aggression. The leaders assembled in Bombay on the eve of the All India Congress Committee meeting, which had been summoned to endorse the Quit India resolution. On August 7th, 1942, they assembled at the Gawalia Tank Maidan and awaited the final call for India's deliverance. Outlining his plan of action, Gandhi spoke for 2 hours. He declared that he would try for an honorable settlement before commencing the actual struggle. Concluding, Gandhi said, "Here is a dictum for the non-violent soldier of freedom. Do or die." A few hours later, in the early morning of August 9th, Gandhi was removed from the scene of action and immured along with his party behind the barbed wire isolation of the Aga Khan Palace detention camp at Pune. In detention, Kasturbai's health deteriorated fast. She died as a prisoner on February 22nd, 1944.